Food's here already? That's the fastest food delivery ever. Welcome back to the studio build out part 2, where I've clearly done quite a bit. I cleared out both shelving units, got rid of all of this stuff. So Brandon and I actually have some space. We've got some room to start thinking about how we want to change the space to feel a bit more like an office, for myself, a bit more of a YouTube set. Just a place that we can come and actually feel like we're in a creative space and not a gear closet. So I'm looking forward to this. It feels pretty good. Now, before I get any further into this video, I guess I should probably address the elephant in the room. The one problem that I've realized that I'm gonna have throughout this whole process, and that's the fact that I'm not an architect. I'm definitely not an interior designer, and I'm not even a creative DIYer. It's just not my strong suit, never has been. I walk into spaces that I think are absolutely incredible. I'm like, I would never think of that. That's not something that I'm wired to do. The one thing that I've learned from talking to any creative, whether they're an interior designer or a filmmaker, I've been watching a lot of interior design YouTube, is that pre-production is the most important thing. So I just sat down with a good old-fashioned pen and paper, started writing down ideas. I wrote down probably the top 3 or 4 most important things to me that would maximize my space, knowing that I only have a 20-foot by 8-foot shipping container, 10 feet of which aren't actually mine. Brandon shares this container with me, and I need to be conscious that he needs his space as well. So how do I make now a 10-foot by 8-foot space work for me in creating YouTube videos, but also meeting with clients? Say I'm editing a documentary back here, and the client needs to sit down and check that out. Well, I need to make that work. So that was the first thing that I needed to sit down and figure out. Now I realize what I just said kind of brushed over my top 3 points already, but let's break it down a little further. Point number 1 that I thought of, as soon as I walk into the space, it just needs to feel finished. It should feel like when I set up a camera, I can put it down and start shooting as soon as I walk into the space after flicking on a couple lights. I also needed to maximize the space so that I'd have plenty of storage for the equipment that I still keep in this container, while also make it aesthetically pleasing. Point number 2 is that there needed to be space for a small chair, or I might be able to squeeze in a love seat of some kind, or just a bench, so that clients or the other guys from Evil Empire can come sit in the space, hang out, and just brainstorm ideas for videos or have a meeting about a potential project that's coming up. Bonar did a really good job of this, so you know what, let's go see how Bonar's container is set up, because he did a really good job of this in his. Keeping in mind, it's just him that's going to be in that space, but I feel like I can steal some more ideas from him. We're going to go see Bonar, and Bonar's going to help us solve one of the issues that I'm having in trying to create my own space. Bonar.
Hey.
How's it going?
Eating my breakfast.
Eating your breakfast
at 4:40.
I was going to say, it's much later than breakfast.
I know.
Bonar, I've been trying to figure out my studio space, how to actually make it work for me, and you are clearly far more done than I am.
Yes. Only because I paid other people to do it for me.
That's a key point right there for sure. But just tell us who you are, like what your work encompasses, and why you kind of built out your container the way you did.
Okay, so 3-part question. My name is Bonar Bolter, which is a weird name unto itself. It's Norwegian. Bonar Kylie Bjorklund Bolter for the full enchilada.
First time I've heard it.
It's Norwegian, yeah. Although I've never been to Norway, so it doesn't mean anything. And this container is a home for me. You know, I've got a family at home. I used to have everything. When COVID happened, I moved everything home. You know, I had an office out in Oakville, moved everything from that office to home, and my basement was full of gear, and everyone was staying at home. We didn't know what we were going to do. And then Evil Empire came up, Christoph came up, we became buddies. I sort of bought into the whole business here. And the container has become a place to actually have an office. So what you have, as far as the setup is concerned, is a few things. Number 1, the desk. This is the same desk that Christoph has, and I think Jesse has one of these, or at least Bamboo as well. It's a Fully desk, made by Fully the company. But what's important is the placement of the desk. And this is a small container about 8 feet wide, and you have to find a desk that's small enough or big enough, depending on your point of view, to fit the way you want it. And I need to face out, because I don't like, if you go to Jesse's container,
They're both facing opposite walls, yeah.
yeah, that's right. So especially Dave, right? Because Dave's back is to the glass door. I like to see what's coming at me. Now, granted, I have a computer screen here, but what I can do, and you and I do this all the time, is I can sort of go over and I can see who's at the door, and they can say, oh, you want a phone call or whatever, and that makes life easy. So this is like one section. The other section is like behind here. You see I have a bunch of, it's a bit of a mess, but some RAIDs and, you know, my stuff. And I've actually hardwired the internet out here. So all of my RAIDs and everything else are wired into the wall. They're sort of separate, and I can manage all my data and the team's data. And what's really interesting, and maybe we'll get to it one day, is I'm wiring the Ethernet cable from here all the way to the storage lockers we have. So you'll be able to come into the storage lockers, plug in an Ethernet cable, and do some DIT management. You'll be able to offload footage while putting the gear away, and all that footage will come and just like live on the RAIDs, and that means that my head of production or any of these guys can go ahead and do their job, and they don't have to necessarily come in here, or, you know, whatever. And then there's the third area, which is the sitting area, and I bought this lovely yellow, steak and sizzle yellow, because that's kind of the company colors, chair, a couple of fake plants from IKEA, because you know there's not going to be a real plant living here anytime soon. And you know, that's a sitting area where I can sit back and relax. And you know, you can also have, like today I had a little team meeting. You know, I've got a small group of 6 people, 6 employees, and you can have people come in and have meetings here. So you have this little gray bench here, or you could even take this little gray chair and I can sit in the big, you know, yellow chair. So it's sort of broken down into 3 sections. There's data and computers, there's workspace over here, and there's sitting space over here. It's still a bit of a mess because, welcome to my world. I don't like the color of Kristoff's container.
They don't either.
It's dark and like scary. Plus it smelled like that for like crazy paint for a long time. You know, so I think that was a color that's dark enough that it doesn't reflect weird colors, but light enough that it's not a dark space, that, you know, it's a nice little medium. And what we did here is, if you look at the colors of our doors are actually all, the inside of our doors are all different.
Yeah.
Like all the stuff, each of our containers are slightly different.
Yeah.
So the color was really just built off of the color that was on the door there, because I knew that when that door closed, you know, it's going to be sort of uniform. So just thinking about the color was important. That's it.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, thanks for taking time out of your very busy schedule.
So, yeah. Tell me about it. Let me go back to
Go home.
Go back to my sandwich.
Now, obviously, I don't have the space to do what Bonar did in his container by sectioning it off into thirds, but it did give me an idea into creating smooth transitions within my space using things like decor, paint colors, and just other objects that I might hang on the walls or anything like that to maximize the amount of backdrops that I might have in filming YouTube videos like this. One YouTube channel in particular stuck out in my mind called 30x40 Design Workshop. Now that's run by a guy named Eric, who's an architect who blends a lot of the things that he finds in his home state of Maine into his designs. And I absolutely love the darker colors and color palettes that he uses, and that's something that I'm looking at incorporating within my smaller space in a container. Obviously, I've talked about one tool that I've already used, and that's just a good old notebook. But then to just kind of help me work with some of the color palettes that I just talked about, I moved those physical sketches into the digital world by using Procreate. Procreate's a great app that I believe costs around $30 or $40, so it's not the cheapest of apps, but works super well with the iPad Pro, and you're able to add some colors and different brush strokes into your sketches just to give you an even better idea or help other people understand what you're trying to do within your space in your sketches. The other app that I've been finding super helpful is the Live Home 3D app. Now this is something that was recommended to me by Christoph, who I believe has designed all of Evil Empire with this app. And the cool thing about it is that you can work within a 2D floor plan space. So if you are used to working with blueprints and things like that, you can just work as a 2D space looking directly down on the space that you're working on. But then you can move into a 3D space and start to place your furniture and get a bit more of a real world visual as to how that stuff is gonna look. And something that I just learned now is that you can add other furniture into the library or the archive library within the app So if you want to get super specific on the furniture that you're placing, you already know what you want in the space, you can add it into the apps library and put that exact piece of furniture within your virtual space. I'm not going to go into too much more because I don't actually know a whole lot about the app. I know just enough to get myself going. But I think to finish off the video, I might as well give you a real world tour and see what I plan on doing with this. Okay, well, this is the first time that I've actually kind of moved through the space and kind of given you a full glimpse as to what I'm hoping to achieve with my little 10 foot by 8 feet that I have to work within here. And for that, let's go to the trusty notebook, the thing that I started working with to kind of come up with the 3 big things that I wanted. So number 1 was that I just needed to feel film ready. And one of those things to do that was I need to decide on a paint color. And although I'm not totally there yet, I don't completely know what color I want to go with. I have picked out about 7 different paint colors. Looks like they're all from Behr. Stopped over at Home Depot last night and I really want to check them out, but I think I've decided out of all of them, once I held them up to the wall, I realized that the color that I see holding them with light washing over them is very different than when you hold it up to the wall. They actually get quite a bit darker. So I'm actually leaning towards Iron Mountain, which was the lightest of all of them, but I still think it might be a little bit too dark once I start applying the paint. So probably 1 shade lighter than this. I'll have to go back to Home Depot and check some other stores out with this paint chip and kind of go from there. But that's kind of step 1 to making it just feel film ready. It's just a little bit more than just a white wash of wall. Feels a bit more like an office, and one of the big things that people were kind of worried about was it being too dark, and that's still a concern here. But I feel like once you have the proper lighting set up, it's good, it's fine. So then the second thing, when we're looking at this wall here, I've got a pegboard down on the floor, which I bought probably 4 months ago, once it came back in stock at IKEA. Lots of people have that in their space, but it does kind of help keep things organized and just adds a little texture to the space, so it's just not a blank wall. When we move into the corner here where my FX6 is currently sitting, this I think is actually going to be where I'm going to have an extra chair, just somewhere if I want to just like sit and read and get away from staring at a desktop the whole time. Have a chair or like a bench or something set up here. And this corner is going to be a bit more of an accent corner. So I've seen a couple companies that do these slat walls that look really cool. So I think I'm going to do something like that there. And I'll probably throw in some clips from the 3D Live Home 3D app that I've been designing the space with. And on this side here, I haven't totally decided if this is going to stay bare, if I'm going to add some shelving right here into the drywall, or if I'm going to install the bookshelves over there. I'm not installing bookshelves, but I got some bookshelves from IKEA that might work well there. Yeah, we're good. Okay, we're rolling. Okay. Sorry to interrupt on that last little bit there. There was one other thing that's pretty crucial to my space to make it as variable as possible, and that's to actually change out this desk. This desk will also change in the future. It will probably end up being a fully desk sit stand so that I can raise it up and lower it down, because instead of using a tripod like I'm using right now, I will probably end up using a small rig telescoping pole thing. It's like a desk mount thing that I have at home, and I have one here as well. So I'll mount that up on the desk so I can actually just move the desk around and change the backdrop depending on what I need. And I realize I'm on an angle, but that's fine. Let's get back to the video. And finally, over the desk, I do want to add a shelving, piece of shelving right there. Brandon built one a while back. He offered to build one for me, but at the time I just felt like I was so much in a gear closet, I didn't want something else over top. But now that we have the space, I'm thinking I might add that in as well. And I've got one other bookshelf that might go here or maybe over on Brandon's side if he needs a little more space as well. But it's getting there, and I'm so excited to finally have an office space. And I'll see you in the next one because this video is too long already.